right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the XP Billionaires podcast. This is Rafe Thegrum. I'm joined by Sky Knight and Irene Rogue, as I usually am every week. Sky, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm fine, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's been one of those weekends. I know. Yeah, we for those of you who need to know, we Sky and I lost a dear friend of ours over the weekend, so it's been a bit of a tough time. But we're definitely here. We're gonna do our best to make sure that we concentrate on the video game talk, as everyone here certainly loves. And Irene, how are you doing today?
I'm not bad. Computer's acting a little funny all of a sudden, which is not great.
I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out over time, definitely.
We'll see, because all my icons are flashing like I keep pushing the mouse, but I'm not. Which is interesting. Probably one of the connections is loose in the back.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, let's get started with this week's episode. So, as we mentioned in our 2020 premiere episode, we are starting a new section on our website called Quickfire Reviews. So, these are shorter reviews with no actual substance to them other than a listing of pros and cons for the game and then a quick score out of 5. So to celebrate the launch of these reviews, I figured it would be fun if we did a couple here on the show and, had a bit of a chance to discuss them. What I did ask for everyone is that we select games that at least one of us have played so that it does give us a little bit of conversation points involved as well. So you should be able to hear a couple of really interesting perspectives with regards to this episode. So on that note, Irene, I have you slated to go first. So if you have a review to get started with, that'd be awesome.
I've got one, but sure, why not? So you just want me to read it?
Yeah, just read out your pros, and then we can either discuss them then, or and then read out your cons afterwards. We'll just kind of see how it flows from there.
Okay. So I decided to do a quick-fire review of Kingdom Hearts, the original Kingdom Hearts. So
Okay.
for PS2, PS3, PS4, because it's been ported over and over again. I'm not specifying which particular version because my commentary applies to both, because there's, original flavor and final mix. Anyway, my commentary applies to both versions, is what I'm getting at. So, pros. Absolutely bonkers story that makes no sense without a large amount of suspension of disbelief and willingness to accept cheesy lines about love and friendship. It's a lot of fun. Next, Disney characters! Exclamation point. Fun and simple combat that features both adorable and scary monsters. Next, Disney villains! Exclamation point. Really, really cool weapon design with the keyblade and various keychains. A concept of Final Fantasy characters matched with Disney that shouldn't work but really does. A lighthearted story, not too dark, with an endearing protagonist as well as Donald and Goofy, who are far less annoying than they sound. Great music. The opening theme still gives me chills to this day. So that's what I had for pros, essentially. I didn't want to get into too many details. I wasn't sure, how much in the weeds do people want to get on Kingdom Hearts lore.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's one of the parts where I will put a bit of contention on your selection of pros. I consider the whole concept of the storyline to be a bit more of a con rather than a pro. But this is my personal opinion on it.
Just wait till we get to the cons, and I will address that.
Okay, no, fair enough. But that's just my point. Like that whole concept that if it's too confusing, I have trouble wanting to care, and that's just where I stand on it. So
Kingdom Hearts is definitely one of those games that don't think too hard about it or it falls apart.
yeah, and that admittedly becomes a problem for me. But let's move on to your cons. Let's see what you've got on that.
Okay, so cons. Absolutely bonkers story that makes no sense without a large suspension of disbelief and willingness to accept cheesy lines about love and friendship. The story is both its greatest asset and its greatest curse. It's difficult to recommend to people because the story is bonkers. I love it. I love that it's bonkers, but I understand it's a specific flavor of bonkers that not everybody quite appreciates. Next was not a lot of options on playstyle. Leaning into a magic build is a great way to make the game hard for yourself for no reason, because magic's not particularly viable. Um, some boss fights are notoriously hard early on. I'm looking at you, Cerberus. Mostly because the boss spends a lot of time out of reach, so it's kind of like artificial difficulty by way of removing options. Essentially, the boss is not it's not reachable throughout the entire fight. So like, what am I supposed to do? Um, Last con was subsequent entries were unavailable for a long time because they were on handhelds, and all of it was canon. Missing an entry meant missing key story details. So like, I'm gonna back this one up a little bit and go way back in the PS2 era before all the entries were made available on PS3 and PS4. I still remember being really excited for Kingdom Hearts 2 and not understanding what was happening because Chain of Memories, the in-between game that was released for the Game Boy Advance, was released for the Game Boy Advance. So I needed a whole other console just to continue on the mainline canon story, which was a bit of a drag, to be honest. Now they're all available like in one nice, neat little package, but that wasn't always the case. And it certainly wasn't the case like I have original copies of all of the other Kingdom Hearts games. They were never on the same system. Not even in the same ballpark. Like they didn't go like PS2, PS3. They went PS2, GBA, PS2, Nintendo DS, PSP, Nintendo 3DS, PS4.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And all of those entries were like important to the bonkers story. So like you would have to get a lot of consoles in order to follow the story in its entirety in like back in the day, essentially. And that's a big con for me because like that's a high bar of entry, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive to have all those consoles. So like I really would have preferred if they had stuck to a main line of some kind. Anyway, overall, I loved this game. Kingdom Hearts is one of my favorite all-time games. I still gave it a score of 4 out of 5. It's not perfect. It hasn't aged well in comparison to some of the newer entries, but it's still like endearing to me. You know?
No, absolutely. That makes total sense. I actually don't think at any point I've scored a 5 out of 5 on any of the games I've done QFRs for just yet. I don't know if I ever will. There's always going to be something that I might have a point of contention with, and unless I can absolutely say unequivocally that there isn't a problem with the game, it's not going to get a 5.
I mean, I would say that it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect in order to get a 5, but essentially it's like any problems that it does have are so minor as to be footnotes because no game is perfect. Like they're not impacting the experience whatsoever, in my opinion. And for Kingdom Hearts, I couldn't do that because, like, as I said, there are some genuinely frustrating fights for no reason. It's stuff like that. It's like if this is not going to impact my experience, I would give it a little bit more of a higher score. But like I don't know, I'm playing The Witcher 3 right now, and thinking about it, I would be very tempted to give it a perfect score because there's not a whole lot that bothers me about it. Plus, it has Gwent.
No, fair enough. And like I was saying, like that was just more my perspective. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
very rare when you see a 5 out of 5, but it would be a game I could never stop talking about. And even the ones that I can't stop talking about right now, I still haven't given a full 5 yet. So we'll see how it goes in the future as I finish more games. But
It's the philosophy of like, do I give 100% on an essay because it's subjective?
no, that's completely fair.
Yeah. So that
No,
was the one I wrote down because I figured neither of you were going to do Kingdom Hearts.
yeah, no, definitely good call. And I'd at least played it the first one, and I did finish it actually. I just never compelled to play any of the other ones,
Yeah, I've played everyone except 3 at this point.
which still seems odd to me, but okay.
That I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's move on to another one. So the next one I will do. I have selected one that we've talked about only a few times on the show, but I feel like it deserves a little more praise than we've been giving it to it. So my first quickfire review that we're going to do on air from my perspective is Resonance of Fate for the PS3.
That's a good
I
one.
Yeah, I know all three of us have at least attempted it at one point or another. So I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to discuss it because there's a lot to talk about with this game, if you ask me. So I'll start with the pros. I have three very simple, straightforward pros for this. First off, the acrobatic gunplay combat style is just visually stunning. It is so much fun to watch everybody just jump around and firing bullets, tossing grenades, doing whatever. Oh, it's fantastic. I absolutely loved it. The next bit, and I know Sky is going to agree with me on this one, is the cosmetic character customization was fun and incredibly plentiful, and this was before games thought they could milk it with microtransactions.
Yeah, it's awesome. I had so much fun dressing up the three characters.
Yeah, yeah. And lastly, gun customization is ridiculously funny looking, but it's also really, really fun to actually build the gun the way that the system has made it out. It's a little confusing at first, but once you figure out what goes where and how you can really exploit it, especially with some of the later guns in the game, so much fun. And the gun just looks so ridiculous on a blueprint schematic, having like six barrels, some of which are coming out of the handle. It's cheesy, it's ridiculous, and I loved it.
Yeah, so for those of you who played classic Diablo 2 back in the day or classic Diablo, um, remember your inventory screen? That's essentially what you were doing. You had a basic gun and you were building on the rest with the rest of the blocks around the gun. And you would just slap stuff on so long as you had enough block sections in order to put them there.
Well, it wasn't just that. Certain sections also had connection icons, so you had to use something with a matching icon in order to connect it there too. So that's where things got really weird because then you'd be adding on additional mags or additional scopes, that kind of thing, stacking scopes on top of each other. And eventually some of these things just came with, oh, here's a spot with a mag where you can put an extra chamber. Like it was insane. But yeah, no, it was so much fun to work with, and I loved it a lot. Now, as for the cons, and there are again three cons for this one. So the combat itself does have a steeper than expected learning curve. I will admit to that. It was still fun once you got the hang of it, but you had a lot to work with. Um, the story and setting were somewhat lacking in explanation without, kind of really looking up back lore. So it really kind of had that kind of Dark Souls feel to it, though I know we've been discussing in the past. And lastly, some of the NPC characters were just a little too eccentric for the setting, in my opinion. There were some real oddball types in this particular world that they just felt really out of place. And even like Vacheron's little dance reaction to one of the Cardinals. And if you haven't played the game, look it up because it's absolutely ridiculous. But it was a little too silly for the setting. And even for Vacheron, it was just a little over the top.
I remember that the setting was very difficult. It was a bit impenetrable if you weren't really digging in there, you know?
No, exactly. Like I honestly, like when I first played through the game, I didn't understand the fact or understand why people were coming back to life after they died. And
People were
when I
coming back to
started,
life. I didn't even get that. People were coming back to life after they died. I'm like, I didn't even get like that part of the story.
well, see, that's the thing. If you watch the intro video, the opening cinematic of that game, Vacheron is fighting with Zephyr, who has gone berserk after killing a whole bunch of people. Vacheron kills Zephyr, and yet for some reason he's around during the game. It's not fully properly explained. I looked into it. They do explain it. It's the tower that they've built in decides when people are supposed to die. I believe that's the understanding. So if somebody dies prematurely beyond that, it's like, nope, reset, you come back, you're good.
Cool. That's
It,
not upsetting at all.
yeah, so I don't know if it meant that some people could live for hundreds of years or if there was a set clock. Like, I didn't really understand that to its fullest. And I still would want to go back and kind of get a better understanding of it just because overall, it is a fun game. Like, my final score for it was 3.5 out of 5 because, I mean, super fun game, but this story thing is a huge wall for people who are very story driven when it comes to their games And then again, with the difficulty in the combat, and I know we've had lots of discussions about that in the past, off the air, but there was a learning curve. But once I had it figured out, I found it to be super enjoyable.
Yeah, actually, I needed you to show me how to play it, and then everything sort of like slipped into place. But from the menu, like the way it was like from the tutorial descriptions, I could not fucking figure it out. I actually needed to like see someone do it in order to understand what the game wanted from me.
Yeah, yeah, and that can be a hindrance. And I know there was a lot of online discussion about how people just couldn't get into the game because the combat was so difficult. So,
I think, yeah, they
but,
didn't explain it very well in words. They needed a demonstration. They needed a
yeah,
better demonstration because the way it explained it in like the tutorial sections was like, be careful, you only have so many hero actions. It's like, okay, I'm gonna hoard these because you told me to be careful. No, you have to use them all the fucking time. It's like it's contradictory messaging.
no, exactly. All right. So yeah, that's my review going into our new segment for our website. It's time for Sky to give us a review, I think.
Well, my review, perhaps obviously, is going to be the original Suikoden on PS1. So the pros are a charming and absolutely gigantic cast. And they give everyone some screen time, but in order, basically order of importance. So some characters have significant character arcs, some don't. But when you're doing 108 characters and you're creating an army, no one's going to have the same amount of screen time. It's a very well written war story, which is paced extremely well. It's also very short. If you know what you're doing, you can clear it in 15 hours. If you don't, 20 to 25, maybe. So this is where we get the first instance of the varied gameplay of Suikoden. So we've got standard party turn-based combat, one-on-one duels, and army scenarios. And this format really makes the game a bit more interesting in that you're not doing the same thing all the time. So that's quite nice. Now, the quality of each of those types of gameplay varies, but it's not. But it's nice to have some change up. The soundtrack is gorgeous. Miki Higashino is amazing, and she did a great job on this. And the game leads very well into its sequel.
Yeah, no, I was just going to agree. Like all of those points were fantastic. It was very. I'm gonna think of it like everything just seemed to be very well done, right down to the characters, even the ones that didn't get a lot of screen time. It was just I don't know. There was something about it. There was a charm to every character, no matter what. And this was before we even got into doing things like being able to investigate characters, right? Just
Yeah.
that, like going into that first encounter with that person. Like, I even remember just your random encounter with Sarah, the laundry girl, and how, like, and how just like, I don't know why I can remember it so vividly, but it's just like there was a certain charm to her, and all of a sudden it's just like, hey, you want to recruit her? Or like, yes or no? I'm like, sure, why not? Do my laundry. Have no other major role in the game that I can remember, but you can wash our undies. Like it's all good.
Well, yeah, there's a certain perspective, rather, a certain perspective it, of everyone's important. Everyone has a role.
Yeah,
So,
and Suikoden does that incredibly well, and he just gets better and better with each sequel of the game.
yeah,
I would say that the first Suikoden very much laid a very solid foundation for everything that came afterwards because you had like a good foundation for the war combat, the basic combat, the 6v6 party, the rune system. Like it was well thought out from the jump, which meant the other games in the series had a really solid place to go from when they were modifying mechanics. If they did it all, they stayed pretty true to the mechanics throughout, if I remember correctly. Like the core of the battle system never really changed.
No, it didn't. The most significant changes were the move to the 3 rune system as of Suikoden 2. And the war scenarios changed significantly with every entry.
Yeah, you could also argue that there was changes to the turn-based party combat in Suikoden 3 and 4, and then 5 they kind of returned it back to its normal fashion, doing the pairs system in Suikoden 3, and then having only 4 party members in Suite 4 made that a little bit more varied.
Yeah.
But yeah, and with Suikoden 3, the pair system, while interesting, there was issues with that, and missing out on 2 party members in 4 also had its challenges.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's difficult enough to experiment with such a huge cast when you can only put 6 of them in your party. Well, and once that gets reduced to 4, and really it's only 3 because one spot's always taken by the protagonist.
Right.
Like,
who is OP, but like still.
Well, and that's the final irony. Suikoden 4 has the least OP
hero
lead character in the whole series, which is really unfortunate. But
right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we're getting off topic here a little bit.
Yeah.
So why don't I go to the cons?
Yep.
So the cons were the game really could have been fleshed out more here and there. Like the pacing is good, but like stuff is happening so fast that every once in a while you're just like, okay, I need time to process this. There's dramatic difficulty spikes at certain points. Nothing unattainable, but I'm thinking zombie dragon, that's a real brutal fight. And a certain duel.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, I remember. If you were not ready for it, you were not gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, it's more like if you were not ready for it, you're not going to have the perfect ending.
That too.
Yeah. One of the other problems with this game, and really all Suikoden games have this problem to a certain extent, the localization is a real mixed bag. Matthew is not a doctor. Let's just put that right out there. He's a strategist, but the game calls him a doctor, and it's super confusing.
And that's just only one of the issues.
Yeah. This series has so many localization issues that there used to be a website online. It's not there anymore, but there used to be a whole website dedicated to translation issues with the Suikoden series.
Of course there was.
It's so sad.
That is very unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, most of them won't impact your core understanding of the game. So don't worry about that, but just note that sometimes you may go, what the hell do they mean there?
There'll be a lot of instances where you'll be like, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
why is the doctor strategizing our like attack on things? Shouldn't we get like a strategist?
Yeah. Well, and the basic fact that if Matthew was a doctor, they wouldn't have needed Leokan for the issue with Milich's castle. A whole big thing where you have to go rescue this doctor because you need help dealing with poisonous flowers.
Yeah, the strategist was like, well, I'm a doctor, but I'm not going to help you. That's a terrible, terrible look.
Yeah. So
yeah. Welcome to a world without the Hippocratic Oath.
So yeah, localization mixed bag. And my last one, it may just be a personal pet peeve, but Kryn. Kryn may be the most useless character in video games. And he is forced into your party at one point, and I hate it.
I counter with Nanami.
No. Nanami can actually do damage.
Sort of.
Better than Kring can.
Jesus Christ.
He is the worst. He not only is he like completely useless in fights, but he's obnoxious personally too. So it's just like, wow, you are just a useless tool. Now, thank God he wasn't in the game any more than he was, but he is forced in for at least one dungeon, and yeah, not my favorite, not gonna lie. So my final score was 4.5 out of 5. Though actually, I missed one comp. Individual inventory for each character can get annoying.
Jesus Christ, across that many characters? I don't even like having to manage it in Dragon Quest, and there's only like 6 people.
Yeah. It's now, I mean, the obvious solution here is essential stuff stays with the protagonist or someone who's in your party all the time. Like, it's easy to circumvent, but just, you just got to remember not to be sloppy. That's all.
Yeah, but I don't want to spend like 108 characters worth of inventory looking for like that sword I wanted.
And that, well, but you're forgetting something. Storage.
Yes, I do remember that. I'm just like, I don't like inventory management. I don't like individual inventory management with like a smaller number of characters. That just sounds awful.
Yeah, it's really not so long as you don't put essential items on Joe Blow X. That's all.
You hope not, but like, I'm busy. I might not notice. And then I'm like, where is it?
Yeah.
So that will cover our introduction to our quickfire reviews. I hope you guys liked them. Don't forget to check out our other reviews, which will be available on our website, and that's xpbillionaires.wordpress.com. You'll also be able to find the transcripts for every episode there, as well as the announcements for new podcast episodes. So definitely go check that out. And yeah, if you want to chat about some of the reviews with us, by all means, you can hit us up on our social media. You can find me at BillionairesXP on Twitter, or you can find me at Rafe Thegrim on Instagram. And check out my streams Wednesday as 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, also under Rafe Thegrim. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and Twitch, SkyKnight.xp on Instagram, and I stream on Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. And Irene, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at irogue_xp on Twitter and Twitch. I usually stream on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Lately it's been God of War, but who knows? Maybe it'll be something else. I never know what I'm going to stream until the day of anyway.
All right. And our January newsletter has come out and is available on our coffee page for you to read. That's coffee.com/xpbillionaires. And if you want to help us out with our upcoming server fees, we'd more than appreciate that. Otherwise, just spread the word and find out about all the fun stuff that we've been doing. All right. Well, that's going to be it for us this week. And if you guys want a 5 out of 5 review from me, all you got to do is keep gaming. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye!